So in this video, I finally want to give my thoughts about Christian Toby Obumseli, the black man who recently got sliced and diced by his white OnlyFans model girlfriend, Courtney Taylor, who as of now has not been charged because she claims she acted in self-defense. And this was a highly requested video. A lot of you guys wanted me to touch on this. And I'm sure many of you know that there are some old tweets that were dug up of Christian bashing black women and black people. And since those were discovered, black women have been very publicly refusing to support Christian and refusing to help the family get justice. And black women have been so loud about it that Christian's brother recently issued a statement basically begging the black community to come together and help the family. And I have to say, I am very proud of black women for standing their ground on this and refusing to mule for this man who had a strong disdain for black women. Because listen, when I was telling black women to do the same thing with men like Stephen Clark 4 years ago, I was dragged all over the internet. I was called the devil. So, it's nice to see black women finally catching on. I did see that one black woman who saw Courtney in a bar or something and she ran up on her.
I'll videotape her. Right now, you should go. Yeah, you should go. Because you just killed your boyfriend. Yeah, you did. Yeah, and yeah. Okay, cool.
But that's to be expected. It's always going to be at least one black woman with her cape on. Black men are always going to have their ride or dies no matter what, and it's honestly embarrassing. This man bashed black women, chose to be with a white woman. Now Courtney's OnlyFans friends are coming out saying he was stealing money from her.
I personally know Courtney. I've worked with her in the past.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a lot of spicy content with her. I went on a few trips with her, so I do know her personally. I met her boyfriend, Christian. They actually, what most people don't know is they actually broke up last month. So it's not even that they were even together anymore, actually.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was actually stealing money from her and back and forth, for a full 2 or 3 months, just stealing money from her account. And she was really upset about that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if that was the reason the domestic violence happened or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously somebody doesn't stab somebody for no reason. The cops have been called 5 to 7 times prior to this instant.
I did read that, yeah.
And I believe that there is a witness that said that they saw him with closed hands punching her.
And obviously, we don't know if any of that is true or not. These girls could be making it up and staying on code with each other. But let's also not act like we haven't heard similar stories from black women who are with black men. See, these men try to blame black women for everything that they do wrong. But when you remove black women from the equation and they get with these non-black women, they're doing the same exact thing to them. So what does that tell you? Y'all know black men are hypergamy pros. They are always trying to come up on the women that they're with. One thing they know how to do is get a bag from the women they're dating. But either way, this is not black women's fight. I don't care what he did to her and vice versa. Why are black women like the one who recorded this video still out here defending and inserting themselves in black men's personal and abusive relationships with non-black women? If the shoe was on the other foot and this man was alive, he would not do that for you or any of us. Let black men and non-black women handle this. This is none of our concern. And the only reason I'm even talking about it is to call out the double standards and the hypocrisy and also the lies that black men are telling, which I'll get into that in a minute. But other than that, I feel nothing for all parties involved. This is between two people that decided to be together and stay in a toxic, abusive relationship. Black women should not be approaching this woman, putting themselves in danger, trying to call her out for what she did. That's none of your business. But I am glad that black women rightfully schooled her on why what she did wasn't beneficial to her and other black women. So I'm hoping she learned her lesson because we all had to come around. We all weren't here 4 years ago. Overall, I am just really proud of how black women responded to this. I think a critical mass of us were on code and the message was clear, which is why the statement was issued. Now, obviously, the fact that Christian had all these anti-black woman tweets, that does not mean that he deserve to die. But it does mean that we as Black women especially are allowed to feel indifferent and sit this one out because of the tweets if we choose to do that. We are not obligated to support Black men for any reason, but especially ones like this. And we shouldn't be made to feel guilty about it either. And I would say the same thing if this were my dad or my brother or any other man in my family. And I understand that my stance means that the Black women in Christian's family will suffer, but unfortunately that comes with being pro-self and pro-Black woman. If your son or a Black man in your family is helping to hurt my image and likeness in any way, I have to treat him accordingly despite it negatively affecting you, another Black woman. And that is something all of us as women with Black male relatives have to come to terms with. Now, what I really want to talk about is the reactions that I'm seeing and hearing from Black people, and specifically the opposition. Now that more and more Black women are starting to make it clear that we are being choosy about who we throw our support behind. And we're basically saying if the energy isn't reciprocal, we ain't got nothing for you. And I always like to listen to various perspectives because it gives me kind of a general consensus on what most Black people are thinking in a given situation. And what I noticed with this particular story is that even though I see some Black people taking up for Christian and trying to get Black women to excuse his tweets and fight on his behalf for the greater good of the so-called community, I also see a lot of Black men especially actually refusing to fight for Christian because they don't like what he said about Black people in general. I notice how they feel personally offended as Black American men because I see a lot of talk about Christian not being ADOS or FBA, and that's why a lot of Black men won't back him. It's not necessarily because of what he said about Black women, because we know that ADOS, FBA men, they say some of the same things Christian said about Black women. Even though they try to pretend they're so much different, they're really not. Christian had the typical Black male mentality across the diaspora. But because ADOS Black men feel he just didn't like Black Americans at all, including them, instead of making this solely about Black women, like it would be normally, the narrative is, oh, we have to discard these anti-Black divestors, both male and female, because they're sellouts, they're a liability, and therefore they shouldn't get support from the Black community if something happens to them. And on the surface, that does appear to be a very balanced stance to take, but we all know that the energy is not the same when something happens to a Black woman who dates out. There's usually no collective focus on both genders who date out and how neither should be supported. Most of the time when something happens to a Black female swirler, there is a single focus on that individual Black woman and where she went wrong. When Lauren Smith Fields passed, there were tons of videos on why Black women shouldn't date white men, videos about sugar baby culture and why it's so dangerous, even though there was no proof that Lauren was even a sugar baby. And in my video on Lauren, I actually shared all of the comments from Black men online who were making fun of her death, saying that she deserved what she got. There was no real emphasis placed on penalizing both genders who swirl like it is now with Christian. Almost every commentary I've heard about this from the same people who were literally dragging Lauren Smith Fields, there's an energy there that's much less critical and much less harsh. And there's more context given as well. I'm hearing Black men trying to justify Christian's tweets, saying that he likely had bad experiences with Black women and that's why he said what he said. But when Black women say anything negative or critical about Black men, her experiences don't matter. She's just bitter, hateful, and she's a femcel. Nobody asks, well, how do these Black women grow to have such disdain for Black men? It must be something that these Black men are doing to these women. That context is never given to us. And so I do think it's important for Black women to note the differences in responses from Black men, whether it be them having more grace for Black men who disparage Black women than the reverse, or them playing this pro-Black Hotep mind game where they're trying to paint the illusion of being on code and pretending not to support men like Christian, when in most cases they do. It's just that he offended them, so they're treating him more harshly. What they're doing is very slick, and it can easily be interpreted as them unifying with Black women when they're really prioritizing themselves. And it's important for Black women to understand that. And that's why Christian's brother and his family are calling for the quote-unquote community and trying to use those pro-Black trigger words to play on that race first mentality that most black women have. The community constantly does that to black women, especially to get us to spring into action because they need our labor to help these men. And it's so audacious and entitled when you think about it, because how dare you even ask us to care about this man and support him in his death when he publicly showed his lack of support and love and care for black women when he was alive. It's so insulting to me. And as far as we know, he didn't change. I mean, look at who he was dealing with. And no, we don't have to give him the benefit of the doubt, because if it was a black woman, we wouldn't get it. Because I'm hearing black men, even some of the ones that don't agree with him, I'm hearing them trying to excuse Christian because he was 16 or 17 when he made those tweets. And once again, it's the hypocrisy for me, because if it was a black girl who was behaving poorly or she was promiscuous at the age of 16 or 17, for example, according to black men, she knew what she was doing and she's a thought forever in the eyes of black men. Young black girls do not get the luxury of blaming their poor behavior on their young age. So no, black women don't owe black boys the grace the community refuses to give black girls. You don't get to adultify black female teenagers while treating black boy teenagers like children that don't know any better. The problem is the double standards. Just change the gender and pretend these tweets were written by a black woman about a black man. And tell me if you really think black men would lift a finger to support her. Can you imagine if a black woman said white peen looked better than black peen? That would be totally unforgivable in the eyes of black men. We all know a black woman would never get away with saying any of these things about black men ever. Lauren shared a joke about leaving black men for white men, and black men were all over the internet saying that she deserved to die. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter that Courtney Taylor was doing sex work on OnlyFans. It doesn't matter that she got up on a black male podcast and said that she only dates rich black guys.
I'm Courtney Taylor, and I do OF for a living.
OnlyFans. You got like 1 million followers or something?
2 million.
Damn. You look like the type of girl that only dates like rich guys. Is that true?
No, that's not true. I only date black guys. Especially black guys. Especially black guys. Let me clarify. I only date rich black guys.
Rich black guys. There we go. And you know you're toxic.
Yeah.
You can tell she like black guys. It's like, especially black guys. For all you watching, I'm with it.
White men are still protecting her. They attempted to help her mask her identity with the Baker Act. They were basically trying to bury this whole case. And of course, now they may be forced to make an example out of her because the case went viral, but they originally weren't planning on it. They were just going to let this white girl get off, and they still might. And as far as I know, a critical mass of white men, they aren't on the internet talking about this, calling Courtney names for dating a black man and being on OnlyFans, even if they feel she ain't shit. From what I see, most of them are pretty much ignoring this. The exceptions don't make the rule. And see, that's the kind of code black people don't know nothing about. And this is not to say that white women who deal with black men don't get disowned from their white family members or excommunicated from the family. But when it comes to crime and DV, they are usually going to take the side of the person who looks like them. White men protect their own first, and that includes other white men, which is why black women especially have to be extremely discerning and vet the white men that you're dating thoroughly, because any of us could be Lauren Smith Fields. And I'm not saying that to scare you or fearmonger you out of dating out like the Hoteps do, because we all know that black men are more of a threat to black women than anyone, but you get the point. Because you are not protected as a black woman, you have to be extremely picky with all races of men, because if something happens, there is a chance that you're going to be left out to dry. So to lower the chances of that happening, you have to be highly and unapologetically discriminating in your mate selection. That is just the way it is, ladies. And no, me being honest about how white men and other groups of men operate is not worshiping black men. Because I know how some of you divestors are. You say anything critical about a white man, you lose your shit. The point is, they ain't black men. White men as a collective protect their women before anyone, as they should. This does not mean that you can't find an individual white man or a non-black man that will protect you. Of course you can. You only need one. Just vet them intensively and vigorously, and don't be in denial about the collective. If this were a black man who killed a white woman, they would throw that man under the jail, and there would not be a critical mass of white men mocking her on the internet saying that she deserved what she got. That is the difference between white men and black men. Black men's little bit of support they sometimes give black female DV victims is contingent upon their behavior and who she was fucking. And really not even then, because they always going to make it the fault of the black woman. It's always going to be the black woman's fault. Black men are not going to automatically take the side of the woman because she's black. They don't have that kind of code with black women. So no, I am not about to jump on this fake pro-black community, fair and balanced bandwagon when the energy is never the same when something happens to a black woman. Absolutely not. This is another case of black men and black people once again wanting black women to jump in our masculinity, fight for a black man, and after it's over, they'll be talking about how tough and loud and unladylike black women are, just like Christian said in his tweet. They encourage that kind of behavior from black women and then shame us for it afterward. And they pretend they have absolutely nothing to do with it. And the tweet that Christian made about black women's behavior and us ruining our image, look at the woman he was with. An OnlyFans sex worker that took his ass out Freddy Krueger style. Sitting there looking crazy like she was out of a fucking movie scene with his blood all over her. According to Christian and black men who think like him, she was masculine and she was misrepresenting herself on OnlyFans. What about her image? And see, this is something men like Christians say often. They say black women behave poorly and we're masculine, we're uncooperative, we're not submissive. Well, what part of good behavior and submission and cooperation was this? You got their friends coming out saying they had a very toxic relationship. She was always calling the cops on him. She was up on the podcast saying how she doesn't like men to tell her what to do.
Do you like to be fully controlled, or do you?
I like to be submissive. Pretty well, yeah, in the bedroom,
Yes.
but like in my life, I don't like anybody to tell me what to do.
Yeah, so you only want them to tell you what to
Yeah.
do in the bedroom. Other than that, you don't want them to tell you anything.
Right. That's exactly it. Yes.
This woman was not cooperative at all. This did not appear to be a soft, feminine, traditional woman. And see, black men can lie all day about their issues with black women being about attitude and lack of femininity and bad behavior. But as we have seen multiple times, black men consistently get other races of women with the same qualities. And I pointed this out with the women on Fresh and Fit's podcast. They consistently have all kinds of ghetto, loud, masculine, non-black women on their show. So they do like these qualities in non-black women. And this is not just the Pookies and Ray Rays. Last I checked, Fresh and Fit are not Pookies and Ray Rays. And so I really wish these men would be honest. Their primary issue with black women is not the attitude. It's not the weight. It's not the weave. It's not the lack of cooperation. The primary issue they have with black women is that we're not light, bright, and white enough. Remember how they said we were night riders? Yeah, that's why. That's their primary issue. And look, y'all know I am all about black women enhancing our femininity, first and foremost for ourselves and then for the right man if we choose to do that. But what I'm not for is black women being gaslit into getting on this hamster wheel, trying to appease these colorists, texturist, and featurist black men and attempting to reach a physical standard that we'll never attain. And this is why I speak so much on colorism, because at the heart of this shit, most of these niggas are colorist or they prefer mixed and non-black women. That's it. That's all. Before any of that other shit, behavior, weight, whatever, that is what they prefer. And how do we know that? Because they harp on looks. They harp on color. This man said that white titties look better than black titties. The main difference between white titties and black titties is what? The color. But y'all get mad at me for quote unquote focusing on colorism so much. I focus on it because most of these niggas are colorists. What our titties look like compared to white women's, that is not something black women can change by fixing our attitudes or not wearing weave. I keep telling y'all, all this other shit that they complain about is a smokescreen. It's a convenient excuse to go where they already want to go. We could fix everything outside of looks that they want us to fix, and they still are going to choose who they want to choose. And you know what? I can't stand them, but I have more respect for the men who are just honest about that and don't try to make it about all this other shit because they feel guilty or whatever else. Most black men want light, bright, and white women, and this applies to both the Pookies and the educated professional black men that they say black women should choose more. The black men who date out are dating out because they are most attracted to light, bright, and white women. I don't care what they say. The perfect attitude from a black woman is not going to override that desire if that's what they have. And look, I am not trying to make black women feel bad about saying any of this. I'm not trying to make you feel like nobody wants you. I'm just telling you the mindset of the majority of black men. The men who genuinely are not colorist are in the extreme minority. So your best bet as a black woman, especially a dark-skinned black woman, is to stop trying to change them. Expand your options so you'll have more men to choose from and a greater chance of meeting men who actually like the way you look. Men who like the color of your skin, men who like the texture of your hair or the color of your areolas or whatever else. Stop allowing these men to gaslight you and make it about anything else other than their colorism, their featureism, and their texturism, because that is their primary issue, not your behavior. That was Christian's primary issue, and it applies to the majority of them. Accept the truth, black women. Move on, move accordingly. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this story. Let me know what you think down in the comment section, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.